Welcome to our weekly show for the National Association of Independent Medical Practices. You can find us at NAIMP.org. NAIMP is an organization focused on helping independent medical practices become more successful by providing innovative discussions, networking with like-minded professionals, and opportunities for growth, education, and increased revenue. Check out our website today at naimp.org.
Hello, and welcome to today's broadcast. This is Shirley Cress-Dudley, your host, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you today Kevin Bailey. Kevin is Director of Business Development at Common Bond, an online student loan platform founded in 2012. Common Bond is recognized as a leading marketplace lender with over 7,500 borrowers, and in 2016 will surpass $1 billion in total loans funded. Prior to joining Common Bond, Kevin served as Senior Policy Advisor in the Office of Financial Institutions at the U.S. Treasury Department. In addition, Kevin served as staff lead for the President's Council on Jobs and Competitiveness at the White House and developed economic policy recommendations to the President. Before joining the Treasury Department, Kevin served in the White House with the Office of the Vice President. He began his career in a number of commercial roles with BP Global Oil Trading in Chicago and Houston, and Kevin is a graduate of Rice University and the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. So we'd like to welcome you today, Kevin, and look forward to hearing what you're going to teach us today.
Well, thank you, Shirley, for that intro and for your invitation to present to the NAIMP. I'm very excited to present on medical school debt and some ideas on how people should consider how to address their student loan balances and some tools they can use to reduce the payments that they have to make and the interest that accrues over the life of the loan. It's a tremendous opportunity to get in front of a fantastic organization and your members, so thank you again for that. So student loans can be overwhelming for people, but they don't necessarily have to be. I'm hoping we could just walk through some information to help you sort through the confusion, and this is really just a few guidelines to help you get control of your financial future so that you feel more empowered and not beset by a lot of stress around your student loan balances. So I'm looking forward to getting into some detail around that for this group. So here we go. We're just going to go through a few of the repayment options available to doctors in particular. I know the NAIMP covers a broad swath of healthcare professionals, but this particular presentation, just for simplicity purposes, is geared towards medical doctors, and the examples are for the typical medical school program and the career after. But many of the concepts and the principles will carry over not only to other healthcare professionals, but also across different industries as well. We work with law firms, many lawyers, pharmacists, nurses, of course, dentists, engineers, MBAs, people coming out of undergraduate school with heavy debt loads, you name it. It's helpful for anyone just to be familiar with the ideas around what we're going to talk about here today. We'll go through some examples of how what refinancing actually is, how it works, and how it can benefit you, and then I'll talk at the end about Common Bond, particularly in our work to help people solve their student loan debt situations. So here it is. The overall principle is, look, millions of people are dealing with student debt. Everyone, I think, gets a little stressed out when they graduate from college or medical school and they see that big balance there just sitting there waiting for them to start repayment on. But the fact of the matter is many people face this every day, every year when they graduate, and they start to repay and they make it over time. The idea is that you shouldn't ignore the different opportunities and the different resources available to you to reduce that monthly payment that's required, and then as a result, over time, start to erode the total amount of interest that accrues. So I'm hoping that just through this brief introduction and this brief presentation, the members of the NAIMP can just start to get a better handle on what student loan debt really means and how you can take control over it. So it's not meant to be overwhelming. So here are a few common terms that doctors and others hear a lot when they're considering what to do about their federal student loans: the pay program, repay, what APR is, public service loan forgiveness, fixed versus variable rates. All these different things get tossed around very quickly, and the alphabet soup can very quickly take hold and cause people to think, well, look, I really don't want to deal with all this. I don't know what this means. There's a lot coming at me. I'd rather just focus on my patient rotation and doing my job. But the fact of the matter is, once you just identify a few of these terms in particular and if they apply to you or if they don't, then it helps you be more forward-looking about how you can actually take control of yourself and not be so overwhelmed by it. So now we've seen a few of the terms just on the previous slide. Let's look at exactly what some of the student loan repayment options are. And you see on the left is the gray area here. For those of you just listening, there's an area on the left that follows or applies to people who are in their residency or their fellowship program. And that's why you're still gaining some training. So you have certain tools, certain programs and options that are available to you before you really start down the path of really earning in your career. And so you have the first term that people hear a lot is forbearance. And really, when you're a resident or a fellow, forbearance basically means you're still being trained. You can defer making monthly payments on your student loan debt, but the catch is, while you're in forbearance, the interest is still accruing. And the typical interest rates on loans that doctors take out are around 6.5 or 6 to 8.5%. So that balance, while you're not on the hook for paying for a few years, that whole while the clock is ticking, that interest rate applies that total balance, and that gets added and capitalized to the total loan amount at the end of your residency and fellowship. The next four on that resident fellow side of the ledger there: income-based repayment, income contingent repayment, pay-as-you-earn repayment plan, and revised pay-as-you-earn repayment plan. Those four programs are government programs that apply to those who have qualified federal loans. And basically, they're a formula that calculate the percentage of your income that is the maximum of what you're expected to pay if you're eligible for those programs. Now, each of those is a little different. There's a lot of detail behind them, but the main principles you should know about income-based repayment, income contingent, pay-as-you-earn, and revised pay-as-you-earn is, you really need to understand your eligibility based on what kind of job you have, your income now, your expected income in the future, your tax liability, and so forth. So we won't go into detail on those now because that could take, each one of those could be their own presentation. But I'd encourage all of you who have a chance to go back and listen to this or look at this webinar to research whether or not those types of plans can be applicable to your case. And on the right-hand side of the ledger, under practicing physician, once you're in your career and you're done with most or all of your training, you're earning more income, then you're expected to go into, typically people are expected to go into the standard 10-year repayment program. For those who want lower payments and want to extend the year's term on that payment, on that loan payment program, you can get into an extended repayment program that goes out to 25 years. And meanwhile, of course, that means the loan payment for each month might be lower, but again, the interest is accruing the entire while. Even though your loan is in repayment, the interest is still accruing, and the longer you stretch that out, the more interest is accumulating over that time. The Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program is a great program for those who are eligible. You have to work for a qualified employer, and you have to make qualifying payments for a certain amount of time. But if your income is such that you can qualify and your payments have been steady and you work for an employer that qualifies, that could be an excellent program for people to work, and then at the end of 10 years, the balance that remains on that loan is forgiven. And in some cases, it's tax-free. That forgiven amount is tax-free. In other cases, depending on your profession and how you qualify, you can have that balance forgiven at the end of the payment period. However, that remains that you don't have to repay is then treated as ordinary income for tax purposes at the end of that forgiveness, that payment period. So that's something you really need to be aware of and understand before you elect to participate in that program. And then lastly, what we'll spend some time talking here about is refinancing and how that can lower your interest rates, lower your monthly payment, lower the total amount of interest that accrues over the life of the loan, and save significant amounts of money, especially for doctors and other healthcare professionals who have more advanced education and therefore higher loan balances, which trigger more interest payments because of that loan balance. Okay, so we heard a lot about these options, or a little bit at least. What do they mean for you? Well, it depends on where you are in your career and how that affects you. So we have an example here for a doctor who's named John, who's a gastroenterologist who took out $132,000 to go to medical school. While he's in school, he's in school deferment. He doesn't have to pay, so his monthly payment is zero. But that whole while, as I've mentioned before, the interest is accruing on the balance, the $132,000 he took out to go to school. That whole while, that interest is accruing, and it gets added to the balance. It's capitalized at the end of the school program. So he's got, at the end of his medical school 4-year career, he's got $176,000 between the basic loan amount and the total interest together. When he enters into residency and fellowship, and in this example, it's a 5-year residency and fellowship tenure, he can elect to go into forbearance, which is very similar to in-school deferment. There's no monthly payment required, but at the same time, the interest still accrues on that balance amount. So instead of the $132,000 while he's in residency and fellowship, it starts to accrue on the $176,000. And by the way, the interest rate that we're using in this example is 7.2%, which is a very representative rate for government loans for this type of loan product. So for 7.2%, he's accumulating an additional $57,000 of interest only while he's in residency and fellowship. So now his total interest between medical school and residency is $101,000. That's just interest. The total loan amount, if you include the principal, is now $233,000. He hasn't even entered the phase of where he's a practicing physician yet. So if you move over and start to evaluate while he's a practicing physician, he enters the standard 10-year repayment program for federal loans. His monthly payment then starts to kick in. He has to start paying $2,730 per month. The thing is, while he's even in repayment, the interest is still accruing during that 10-year period. It's still accruing even though he's starting to pay down the loan. So the interest over that period is $95,000 while he's in repayment for that 10-year portion of when he's practicing, which brings his total interest amount between when he's in medical school, when he's in his residency, and then when he's in repayment as a practicing physician, it's nearly $200,000. So the total all in, by the time John pays down his initial loan amount of $132,000 plus the nearly $200,000 of interest accrual is $328,000. That's pretty significant. And that's just to highlight, the interest-only portion is quickly even more than he took out in the first place, because doctors have a very lengthy sort of career span that requires a lot of upfront investment and also sort of kicks out to the future any real earning potential, which is fine, but in the way the finances work is it's just the clock is running, the interest is accruing that whole time. So that's the baseline example. What about public loan forgiveness, which we talked about a little bit before? It really, the requirements are, or I guess the way the program works is it forgives the remaining balance in your direct loans, your direct federal government loans, after you've made 120 qualifying monthly payments, about 10 years worth, or exactly 10 years worth of payments. it's got to be under a qualifying repayment plan. And the details of this, I'd encourage you to dig into after this presentation. We don't have time to go into all of it right now, but it's worthwhile in investigating if you think you would qualify for it. And that, of course, depends on if you work for a qualifying employer. Under the qualifying employer principle, there are three general buckets of employers that count as qualified. The first are when you work for a government organization at the federal, state, local, or tribal level, you can be considered qualified for the Public Loan Service Loan Forgiveness Program. Or if you work for a nonprofit that qualifies under Section 501(c) of the IRS Code. And then there are other organizations that do similar work that might not be qualified as a 501(c)(3), but they do the types of public services that trigger inclusion in this program. And I would encourage you to ask your HR rep, who should know. The HR department should be able to inform their employees whether or not they qualify for this program. So that wraps up a little bit about the income-based types of repayment programs, public service loan forgiveness program, and I want to sort of drift into a different category that applies to a much broader swath of professionals, and doctors foremost among them, is refinancing loans. You can't take advantage of the other programs because your income is higher than would make sense, or you don't otherwise qualify. Refinancing really is a strong tool for you to use to bring down those payments and save thousands and thousands of dollars. The basics, what does refinancing mean? It means basically when you typically take out your loans from the government is your lender. You're making payments back to the government through a servicer that they've contracted with. When you refinance, you take out a new loan from a new lender, typically private. The new lender gives you a new loan, but it pays off your existing lender. In many cases, the federal government, or if it's another private lender, they pay off that lender. They give you a new loan, and the whole purpose of it is to get a lower interest rate. So now you're making payments to not the first lender you've been paying all along, or would have been paying, but a new lender, and it's a new loan with new terms. What are the benefits? Well, top of amongst all the benefits is the savings, and we see doctors save on average more than $30,000 over the life of their loan. That's real money. That's on average. And I think that average amount is about $170,000 or so. The real savings kick in the higher your loan balance, your principal balance is. So doctors, on average, of course, have more than most people, but even within the medical field, further specialization would require more investment of loan dollars, which means the higher your principal balance goes, that number can kick up. It can double if you have, say, $400,000 in loans or more. So I can't emphasize enough the savings aspect of the benefits. Ease. Again, when you refinance, you typically have one lender who can consolidate all of the other loans that you have. So when you take out government loans, a lot of times you max out above the amount that is the maximum that one type of loan program from the government will give you. So you have to then take out, from subsidized Stafford to an additional unsubsidized Stafford to a plus loan, any assortment and mix of them, which means you might have different payment dates, certainly different payment amounts each month. When you refinance, you can consolidate that in that one lender and have one lower monthly payment. A lot of people are surprised by the third one here on the list, the protections that are offered when you refinance. Lenders like us and some others out there, Common Bond does this, and other people in the market, they do offer protections if you decide to go back to school, have a life event, you lose your job, or there's a health emergency of some kind, or you have to take off from work. You can inform your lender that this has taken place. You either want to go back to school, you can have some life event, and they will allow you to go into forbearance during that period so that no monthly payments are due. But again, interest will accrue during that time period, but you do benefit from the fact that you aren't on the hook for making any payments during that time of stress or training. And then lastly, relationships. When you deal with the private lender versus the government lenders, you can, it's a totally different type of interaction. You can reach the private lender through, online means. You can call, you can chat, you can email, you can text, you can get response rates or responses from early in the morning through late at night, if not 24 hours. It's just a much different experience when you deal with a refinance lender. So let's talk about exactly how, it sounds kind of like voodoo maybe, that all of a sudden the government offers a rate for their federal loans to borrowers at a certain rate, but all of a sudden all these other lenders come in and offer a lower rate that causes you to want to refinance with them. How does that actually work? Well, really it comes down to technology and more data. The government has an incentive to offer loans to as many people in the country as they can. That's basically how they're not set up to differentiate between more creditworthy people and less creditworthy people. And so they offer loans to the entire population, basically, and they offer it at one rate. And that one rate tends to be, it's kind of very inflexible. They set it once a year, and every year comes around and they have a cumbersome formula that they use to set the new interest rate that all the loans depend on. When you deal with a private lender for a refinance loan, there are all these different data points that are submitted and that the lender can use to determine a more nuanced picture of the creditworthiness and the risk that borrower represents. And so, for example, with the way we look at potential borrowers, we look at not only their credit history and their jobs and where they are and how much it costs them to live there, but we look at how much free cash flow do they have at the end of the month after they paid all of their bills and all of their required expenses. What's their earning potential? People go to school for a lot of different things, but not all disciplines earn the same, obviously. So we look at what's the likelihood of that person maintaining a certain income over the life of that loan, and how safely cushion, or how strong a cushion is there to pay back that loan confidently. And so we use all of those things to spit out a more representative rate for each of our borrowers, and refinance companies across the country really do the same thing. And that allows us to offer a rate that's much more competitive than you would get just from the standard, almost default rate that the government offers to every individual. And we have examples that show the typical federal government grad plus rate at 7.1%. The average rate that Common Bond, for instance, has for doctors in their medical loans is 4.65%. So that's about a 2.5 percentage point difference, which results in, for the average doctor loan balance of $176,000, that results in direct savings that we talked about of $30,051. $30,051 savings based on a 2.5 percentage point reduction for the average doctor. If you go down to the lowest rate, for example, that Common Bond offers, the 10-year variable, below 3%, in this case 2.94, based on this data, that kicks the savings up to $44,162. So you can see interest rates are really the driver of savings for people with any loan balance, for sure, but certainly when you have higher and higher loan balances, the incremental change in interest rate downward is going to have tremendous savings potential on the back end. So this is why we tell people you really should make an effort to consider how much you can save through refinancing. Make the effort to apply and do it sooner than later, because you're addressing the interest accrual that much more quickly and that much more powerfully. So if we go back to John, our doctor that we've been talking about, the gastroenterologist, who took out $132,000 to go to medical school in the first place, did his 4-year medical school, did his 5-year residency and fellowship, and then started Repayment when he started practicing as a physician. John's total loan amount, including the accrued interest, was $328,000. But if he was to refinance, instead of going into the standard 10-year government repayment, and his interest rate under that refinancing went from the government 7.2% to a representative 5%, just not even our average rate for doctors, just a little bit higher, but the 5% example here, his monthly payment would drop $260 to $2,470, and he would save $32,000 overall between the interest that he would accrue. So that's a significant benefit for John just by dropping down the percentage points that he on his loan, 2.2%. So again, the message here is there's a lot of information flying at doctors and other people about student loans and all the programs out there. And it's understanding that it can be a lot to digest at once, but the principle is the same. The interest rates tend to be very high compared to what the market offers on federal government loans, and doctors, lawyers, dentists, nurses, engineers, other professionals who have advanced education and have taken out loans to achieve that education are well suited to think about, well, look, I really should sit down and think about how I can reduce my monthly payments and also the interest that accrues through refinancing, and I still get protections in case something unforeseen happens or if I have to go back to school that allow me to protect my credit and protect my cash flow. So it's not meant to be something that you put off into the future indefinitely. It's something that I think people are well suited and well served by really thinking about how they can address it today. And I want to tell you a little about, that's what we do here, Common Bond. We are a consumer lender focused on saving people money. And doctors are really great customers of ours because they have, they're very steady. They are very employable. They have good incomes, of course, and they stand to save lots and lots by simply refinancing their debt. Common Bond is also a provider of wellness education. We do things like this quite often. We do presentations in our office here in New York. We do presentations at different hospitals and doctors' practices, dental schools, medical schools, law firms, law schools, you name it, undergraduate colleges, employers. We go wherever there's a collection of people who could benefit from learning about how to save and how really to manage personal finances more broadly. We do a lot of education. We have tons of staff that are really excited about bringing that kind of knowledge to often millennials, but people even beyond the millennial stage. And we have a lot of online content with blogs and different types of newsletters that we send out that just give people a better handle on, their personal finance. And then lastly, we're a fintech leader with a social mission. We are the only financial company with a one-to-one model that mirrors what Tom's and Warby Parker do about providing products that they sell in the market to needy people who need the same types of products. In our case, we partner with an organization called Pencils for Promise, and we provide education to children in the developing world. For every loan that we fund for a student in the United States or for someone refinancing in the United States, we fund a child's education in the developing world. And it's something we're very proud of here. We've done a tremendous amount of work in several places. Most notably, we went to Africa and saw the school that we helped build in Ghana last year, which was really transformational for that community. So it's something we're very proud of. It's something we're happy to offer products that help people here, but also our customers are happy to play a part in doing good around the world. And I'll take a sip of water as I'm closing up here. So I'd encourage each of you who are members of the NAIMP or considering being members of the NAIMP to visit our website at commonbond.co/NAIMP and learn more about how you can save money, just the very quick steps it takes to apply. And the bonus is that for NAIMP members receive $200 for the loans that close through this website. So you're encouraged to join Common Bond. We're very, very excited about our participation on this webinar, but also our partnership with NAIMP and all the good that they do for medical professionals. So I'd encourage you to go to the site, and if you have any questions, please reach out. My email is Kevin, Kevin, @commonbond.co. My phone number is there too. So 972-839-9888. I'd love to walk you through any of the details about how you should refinance, what you should think about, operationally, what forms to submit, all those sorts of things. Feel free to reach out. And with that, I will close and thank you all for your attentiveness. Appreciate it.
Kevin, thank you for that great information on how to save our listeners tens of thousands of dollars.
Shirley, thank you for the invitation. I enjoyed it, and I appreciate the opportunity to tell all of your members about how they can really impact their personal finances in a positive way. Thank you.
Super. And we also appreciate the $200 bonus for NAIMP members or subscribers. And what does that mean to be a member of NAIMP? It means that you go to naimp.org and you subscribe. You put in your name and email and hit subscribe, and you are a member of NAIMP. And at this time, we are not charging for membership. So this is a great opportunity. Each of our speakers offers a special offer. And if today you were listening on iTunes and were not able to see the slides, Kevin had some great slides. You can go to naimp.org. You can also view us on the medical channel, which is on Roku, Amazon Fire, Android TV, and Apple. We're very excited to be on the medical channel and appreciate again the experience and knowledge that our different speakers are bringing us. And thank you for listening. We hope for you to come and visit naimp.org again soon. Thank you.
Check out our website today at naimp.org.